is piloting the UAPs or UFOs constantly seen in our skies? Where are they from? Why are they here? How long have they been here? What is their mission on planet Earth? Do they come in peace, or do they have more sinister motives? Join Mad Mark as he uncovers the answers to these questions and many more of the mysteries that puzzle us all on Who Are the Aliens? The history of the Anunnaki on planet Earth. And now, here's Mad Mark.
Today's episode, the Anunnaki epic continues as Enki tells us of the affairs of brothers and sisters and the labor crisis on planet Earth. Hello everyone and welcome to Who Are the Aliens? The history of the Anunnaki on planet Earth. I, of course, am Mad Mark, and before I begin, just a quick reminder to please like, share, and comment. It helps so much. Today we continue our studies of Zecharia Sitchin's 9th book, The Lost Book of Enki, published by Simon & Schuster in 2001. And now, let's listen in as once again Enki speaks. Now here is the account of the 3 original leaders on Earth, myself, my brother Enlil, and my sister Ninhursag, our loves and spouses, our sons and rivalries. Although we were all offspring of Anu, we each had different mothers. I was Anu's firstborn son, but my mother was one of Anu's concubines. Then Enlil was conceived by Anu's wife, the queen Anzu, and thus he became the heir to the throne of Nibiru. Our half-sister Ninhursag was born from still another concubine, and was Anu's oldest daughter. She was beautiful, wise, and a quick learner. And she was chosen by Anu to be my wife, because had a son been the result of our union, he would have been next in line for the throne of Nibiru. But alas, Ninhursag was enamored with Enlil, and once he realized that, he did seduce her, and that union bore a son. Ninurta was his name. This union of Enlil and Ninhursag greatly angered Anu, and as a result, he forbid her to ever marry anyone. Without a spouse, she would always remain. I instead married the Princess Damkina, and our firstborn son was named Marduk. All of this happened prior to the 3 of us being sent down to Earth. Enlil did not take a wife until after we arrived on Earth, and that account is one of rape, exile, and love that brought forgiveness, and of sons who were also half-brothers. Here now is that account. It was the summer on Earth, and Enlil had retreated to the coolness of his abode in the Cedar Mountains. One day, while taking a walk in the forest, he stumbled upon a cool stream where some of Ninhursag's nurses were bathing, and he immediately became enamored with one of them. Sud was her name. Enlil invited Sud back to his home, and she accepted. Once arriving there, Enlil poured some wine, and eventually the pair became intoxicated, at which point Enlil suggested that they make love. But I am a virgin, Sud explained. I know not of such things. But Enlil continued his advancements towards the young female, his eyes filled with lust. He eventually forced himself on the unwilling Sud and raped her. Afterwards, the young girl reported the incident to her commander, Ninhursag. Earlier in this account, I had mentioned the fact that Ninhursag was in love with Enlil and that the two had a son together. So you can imagine her rage when she learned of what Enlil had done. This was an immoral act, she shouted at him. Justice must be served. The case was brought before the seven who judge, and their sentence was that Enlil would be exiled to another part of the earth where he would live out his life alone. But the pilot assigned to fly my brother to his place of exile was none other than Abgal, an ally of Enlil's. And upon their arrival in this lonely land, the pilot announced to him, "This shall be your place of exile, but I have not chosen it by chance." In a nearby cave, Enki hid the 7 weapons of terror that he removed from Alelu's ship. I was with him when he brought them here. Find these weapons and use them to attain your freedom. Back in the Eden, Ninhursag and Sud were discussing the situation. "By Enlil's seed, I am now pregnant," the young nurse explained. In Enlil's absence, I was now the supreme commander on Earth, and when this news was relayed to me, I quickly brought it before the 7 who judge. Sud informed them of her pregnancy and that she would be willing to marry Enlil for the sake of the child. This news was relayed to Enlil, who quickly agreed. Thus, he received a pardon for his crime, and his exile was ended. The two were married, and Sud became Ninlil, or Lady of the Command. And soon after, a son was born. Nanar was his name. And he was the first of the Anunnaki to be born on this alien planet known as Earth. Soon after these events, I convinced my sister Ninhursag to move in with me at my home in the Anzu. Feeling scorned by Enlil by his rape and marriage of Ninlil, she agreed. We spent many days making love in the beautiful countryside surrounding my abode. But my desire was not born out of love, it was born from my need for a male heir. Twice did I impregnate my sister during this time period, and both times a female child resulted. After the second daughter was born, I lost my temper. "I must have a son by you," I screamed. Ninhursag soon moved back to Eden, and I sent to Nibiru for my wife and son Marduk. And that was the end of the affair between Ninhursag and I. After Marduk, I had 5 more sons between Enki and several concubines. Their names were Nergal, Jabil, Ninagal, Ningazida/Thoth, and Dumuzi. Meanwhile, Enlil had 1 more son by his wife during this time. Ishkager was his name. And thus, our 2 ruling clans were established upon the earth. And this led to many unfortunate wars for supremacy on this planet. Now, here is an account of the mutiny of the Igigi, what the Bible likes to call the War of Heaven and Earth. However, it wasn't really much of a war, and there was no Satan involved, just a bunch of biblical mistranslations that eventually led to that conclusion. On earlier episodes, I talked about how shortly after coming to Earth, the regions were split up between Enki and Enlil. Enlil was granted the upper world, or the northern hemisphere, and Enki was granted the lower world, or the southern hemisphere. This term, lower world, was misunderstood by early biblical scholars and rewritten as underworld and eventually turned into hell. But there is no hell, and there is no Satan. Lucifer was fabricated by early Christian writers who combined various features from well-known pagan gods and created this fictional Christian boogeyman. How better to scare believers into making sure that their asses are in the pews each and every Sunday morning. Okay, now back to Enki and on with the story. From the Anzu, gold taken from the veins of the earth was transported to the spaceport. From there, it was shipped to the way station on Lamu/Mars, and from there, on to Nibiru. The gold was ground into the finest dust and projected into the atmosphere. Slowly, the breach in the atmosphere began to heal, and Nibiru was saved. Back on Earth, in the area known as the Eden, the original 5 cities were perfected. I built Eridu into the sparkling gem of Sumer, and I made a home for my wife Damkina and my son Marduk. I would often take leaves from my duties in the Anzu and return to Eridu to be with my family. During those times, I was able to pass much knowledge along to my son Marduk. He was a good student and a quick learner. In Nibru-Ki, Enlil established the first spaceport. We named it the Bond of Heaven and Earth, and it was a beautiful sight to behold. At its center, a tall tower reached skyward into heaven itself. On a platform that could not be overturned was it placed. From this tower, Enlil beamed his instructions to every ship that arrived and departed the Earth, and also to Lamu Mars, and even on to Nibiru itself. The secret formulas, sun and moon, Nibiru and Earth, and 8 celestial gods were inscribed on the Mies. And inside their chambers, the tablets of destinies emitted their beams. This all provided Enlil with the means to oversee the comings and goings of all ships to and from the spaceport. The working class Anunnaki toiled in the mines for many shars, and they were growing tired. They were constantly complaining of overwork and lack of sustenance. They also continued to struggle with the short days and nights here on Earth. It seemed that there was never enough of Ninhursag's medicine to cover everyone's needs. Teams of workers were constantly being sent back and forth from Nibiru to provide some rest, but the complaining continued. As bad as things were getting on Earth, it was worse still for the Igigi on Lamu Mars, and eventually a team of Igigi were sent to Earth to demand rest. Enlil and I were overwhelmed by the workers' constant complaints. We contacted Anu back on Nibiru for guidance, and he suggested that the commander of the Lamu Mars operations, Anzu, be brought to Earth for some labor negotiations. Enlil and I decided to begin his visit by giving him a tour of our operations here on the Earth so that he could better understand how the workers were suffering here as well. I gave Anzu a tour of the Anzu and showed him the back-breaking labor of the miners. Following that, Enlil provided Anzu with a tour of his spaceport facilities. Okay, we are about to get into a topic regarding the Anunnaki that can be extremely confusing, especially for those of you who might be newcomers to all of this. Many of us who have researched this topic for years still do not completely understand it. We all have our theories, of course. I have given my thoughts on this many times on past episodes. But at the end of the day, they are all just theories. Nobody knows for sure. So before we get into it, let's take a quick look at what Google has to say regarding these Anunnaki tablets of destinies and the Mies. According to Google, the tablets of destinies were powerful tablets that granted supreme authority and control over the fate of the universe to the god who possessed them. Often held by Enki or Enlil, they represented ultimate rule and divine kingship. Some interpretations claim, and this is my personal belief, that these tablets were some sort of data storage units, similar to today's CD, DVD data storage disks, which contained stellar maps and navigation and control codes for the spacecraft. And I have talked on past episodes about my belief that the Mies were very similar data storage disks that also contained all pertinent information needed in regards to the various aspects of civilization. So hopefully that will help you to understand what is going on as Enki's story continues. Enlil and Anzu arrived at Nibru Key and made their way to the spaceport. And to the hallowed dark chamber beneath the facility did Enlil lead him. In the innermost sanctuary did Enlil reveal to Anzu the tablets of destinies. The pair then made their way to the 5 cities where Enlil explained each one's purpose and responsibilities. More ships full of EGG were arriving to Earth when the pair returned to Nibruki, and Enlil promised them that he would look into ways to address their complaints and ease their toil on Lamu Mars. But little did Enlil know that evil had filled the heart of Anzu. Hey gang, Mad Mark here, and by popular demand I now have merch available. I've found the perfect company to work with, and they do an outstanding job. There are t-shirts and hoodies available right now, and who knows what I will come up with in the future. There are 2 different designs to choose from at the moment. You have this one and this one. And these t-shirts and hoodies come in a variety of colors and sizes, so no matter what you're looking for, there's something for everybody. If you're watching this show right now on YouTube, you can find this merch by clicking the shop link below in the show description, or just pay a visit to www.madmarktv.com. That's the all-new Who Are the Aliens t-shirts and hoodies. Get yours today. To steal the tablets of destinies, he was scheming. Then he would control the spaceport and assume rule over Earth, the EGG, and the Anunnaki. Enlil was growing weary from the heat of the day, and he left Anzu in charge of the sanctuary while he retreated to his home to enjoy a cool swim. Anzu took that opportunity to steal the tablets of destinies and then hurried off to the runway where a ship and several rebellious EGG were waiting for him. While Anzu had been carrying out his evil plan, the EGG rebels had captured Abgal and several of his Anunnaki workers as hostages. In the sanctuary of Nibruki, the brilliance died out and the humming quieted. Silence took their place as the sacred formulas were suspended. When word of Anzu's treachery reached Enlil's ears, he was consumed with anger. They radioed Anu, who screamed that Anzu must be seized. The tablets must be returned to the sanctuary. While the majority of the Anunnaki stood around in surprised bewilderment at what to do next, Enlil's son Ninurta jumped into a ship and took off after the rebels. When he had reached the mountain where Anzu and the EGG were hiding, Ninurta launched lightning darts at their hideout. But these were easily turned away. I grabbed a radio and instructed Ninurta on what to do next. With your whirlwind, stir up a storm, I advised him. Let the dust cover Anzu's face. Let his skybird's wings be ruffled. But alas, nothing would work. And we instructed Ninurta to return to the spaceport, where we equipped his ship with a mighty weapon that Enlil had designed. A Tulu missile was its name. As we worked to load the weapon, Enlil instructed his son. We are attaching it to your ship's stormer weapon, he stated. When you get close enough to Anzu's ship for wing-to-wing combat, launch it at him. Again, Ninurta flew towards the rebels, and Anzu's skybird rose to meet him in battle. Wing to wing, Anzu teased Ninurta over the ship's radio. This battle will be your destruction, he stated. It was then that Ninurta swung into action. Taking my earlier advice, he created a dust storm with his whirlwind. As the blowing debris clouded Anzu's vision, Ninurta launched the missile into Anzu's ship. With a fiery brilliance did it explode. The battle was over, and Anzu's ship came crashing to the ground. Once Anzu and the rebellious Ijiji had been rounded up and the hostages were set free, Anu was informed of the victory. Enlil returned the tablets of destinies back to their rightful place in the sanctuary at Nibiru Key, and once again the humming and the brilliance resumed. Anzu was brought before the 7 who judge to stand trial for his crimes. He was found guilty and sentenced to death. But that was like putting a splint on a broken leg. It was a temporary fix, because the unrest amongst the Ijiji still simmered. Marduk was sent to Lamu Mars to replace Anzu as the commander of the way station. Enlil and I had many discussions on how to ease the workload of the Ijiji to avoid a full-on rebellion. Finally, it was Ninurta who provided the solution. Let a metal city be established on Earth, he suggested, where the gold can be smelted and refined. This would result in lighter shipments to Lamu Mars, and likewise from Lamu to Nibiru. And lighter shipments would mean more room for workers on the transport ships. In that way, we could be perpetually transporting tired workers back to Nibiru for rest and bringing in fresh workers to the mines. We all agreed with Ninurta's suggestion, and the plan was put into action. Enlil insisted that the metal city be constructed in the Eden, and with tools and materials from Nibiru, it was constructed over a period of 3 shars. Ninurta, whose suggestion it was to build this facility, was put in charge as its commander, and Bad Tibera was it named. It was an immediate success. The flow of gold to Nibiru was thereby eased and quickened. Those who to Earth and Lamu at the beginning of the prior times had come to Nibiru were returning, and the workers who replaced them were young and eager, at least at first. Meanwhile, with that crisis temporarily averted, I turned my attention to studying the various plant life on Earth. I wished to learn the differences between the vegetation on Nibiru and what grew here on Earth. And I still had much to learn about this planet's atmosphere and its many cycles. By the gushing waters of the Anzu did I build my laboratory, and House of Life did I name it. My son Ningazida, later to be known as Thoth to the Egyptians, joined me in my research. Sacred formulas, tiny me's, and the secrets of life and death did we study. The mysteries of life and death of Earth's creatures did we learn. I was especially interested in one particular species on Earth. They lived among the tall trees and the grasses, and they used their front legs as hands. They would later become known as Homo erectus. The more I became involved in my studies, the less I thought about the workers in the mines. We had addressed the issue of making sure that the workers were given time to rest, but we had done nothing to relieve the back-breaking toil that the Ijiji were forced to endure day after day while working in the mines. One day, Ninurta noticed a significant decrease in the gold ores brought to Bad Tibera, and he was soon dispatched by Enlil down to the Anzu to find the cause of the problem. His chief officer, Enki, accompanied him to the mines. The pair were immediately confronted by the angry workers. "Unbearable is the toil," they grumbled. Ninurta contacted me, and we summoned Enlil to come down and address this issue. When he arrived, we set him up in a temporary home located near the excavation site. And later that night, The angry miners gathered outside the gate of the property. "Let us unnerve Enlil in his dwelling," they yelled. "Let him relieve us from our heavy burden. Let us proclaim war. With hostilities, let us gain relief." The workers set fire to their tools and pickaxes. Some of them grabbed Chief Officer Enki as a hostage. With torches blazing, they hollered their demands at the house where Enlil slept. Waking from the noise, Nusku, Enlil's executive officer, hurried to alert his boss. "My lord," he pounded on Enlil's bedroom door, "your house is surrounded. The workers are at your gate." Enlil summoned Ninurta and I, and we snuck in through a back entrance. "What do my own eyes see?" Enlil screamed at the rioters. "Is it against me that you are rebelling? Who is the leader of this uprising?" "We have no leader," one of the workers screamed. "Every single one of us is declaring hostilities." Another miner backed him up. "Our toil is excessive. The workload is too heavy. Great is our distress." We got on the radio to Anu and informed him of the situation. "What is Enlil being accused of?" the king asked. "It's not Enlil," I responded. "It's the heavy work that they are upset about. Their moans are never ending. Every day they complain louder." "But the gold must be obtained," Anu responded. "The work must continue." Okay, this is Mad Mark again. Sorry for the interruption. Just a bit of valuable information before we continue. You are about to hear a reference to the Earth heating up. This was due to the planet beginning to come out of the last ice age. Remember when Alelu first arrived on Earth, he described it as snow-covered on the top third and the bottom third? Yeah, that was because the Earth was still in the last ice age. But now, at the point in time of this story, the Earth is beginning to warm. I just wanted to mention that so that you wouldn't be confused when it is mentioned in the story. Okay, back to Enki. Enlil opened the door and addressed the angry mob. "Release Enki and send him in so that we may consult with him," he yelled at them. The workers did as directed, and a few moments later, Enki joined us at the table. "Ever since the Earth's temperatures began to rise, our work has become excruciating," he said. "It is unbearable. Let the rebels return to Nibiru, and let's replace them with new workers," Ninurta suggested. "Is there any chance that you could create some new types of equipment?" Enlil looked over at me. "Something that would allow the workers to spend less time in those hot, tight tunnels." "Let me summon my son Ningazita," I suggested. "I have something that I need to discuss with him." From the House of Life, Ningazita hurriedly came. As soon as he arrived, the two of us made our way to another part of the house for a private discussion regarding an idea that I had been pondering. If we could pull it off, it would be the answer to all of our problems. When we finally returned to the room where the others waited, I announced, "A solution is possible. Let us create a Lulu, a primitive worker, to take over the hardships of labor. Let this being carry the heavy yoke of the Anunnaki." The other leaders in the room were speechless. Astounded indeed they were. "Whoever has heard of such a thing?" they scoffed. "A worker who the Anunnaki's toil will do?" We summoned my half-sister Ninhursag. Her knowledge in the field of medicine almost rivaled my own. When she arrived, the questions were flung at her as if being shouted by a chorus. "Who has ever heard of such a thing?" they howled. "Could such a thing even be done?" "The task is unheard of," Ninhursag looked over at me. "All beings must be created from a seed. All creatures have developed over thousands of years. None has ever been born out of nothing. You are correct, my sister, I smiled. But a secret of the Anzu let me reveal to you now. The being that we need, it already exists. All we have to do is to add our essence, our DNA, to it. Thereby, a primitive worker could be created. Give me your blessing, and we can start work on this project immediately. And that is where I will leave you for this episode. I hope you can agree that although I have covered this information before on past episodes, these in-depth details that are being provided by Enki are certainly more intense and a lot more informative. And you have quite a lot to digest there, and we have so much more to cover and learn. I'm Mad Mark, and I sincerely hope that you have enjoyed this episode. If so, please like, share, and comment. It helps so much. And please subscribe so that you never miss an episode. Also, please tell your friends and help spread the word about this show. If you have any questions regarding the content discussed on this program, just message me through madmarktv.com or on any of my social media platforms. I also have a special heads up for those of you who have Facebook accounts. I now offer a subscribers-only page on Facebook where, for just 99 cents a month, you can watch each and every new episode of my show right there on Facebook. It's a handy alternative to having to hassle with YouTube or Spotify to watch the show. And all of my past episodes are on there too, so it's pretty convenient for just 99 cents a month. If you're interested, there's a link in the show notes. Lastly, I would like to remind everyone that listening to this program is no excuse to not read the book that we have been discussing here, The Lost Book of Enki by Zecharia Sitchin. It is an amazing work, and I am leaving out much information in order to keep the show flowing properly, so do yourselves a favor and read that book. Who Are the Aliens? The History of the Anunnaki on Planet Earth is written and produced by me, Mad Mark. Today we have taken another step in our ongoing journey to discover the truth. I promise you that things will get more and more interesting the further we delve into this topic of who are the aliens, the history of the Anunnaki on planet Earth. Peace to all of you, and remember to always walk in love. Bye for now.
You've been listening to Who Are the Aliens? The History of the Anunnaki on Planet Earth with your host, Mad Mark. Join us again on our next program when Mad Mark will once again uncover the answers to the mysteries that puzzle mankind.